everyone, my name's Kayla. Welcome back for another episode of Monster Munchies. So the theme this week is cakes, cupcakes, and muffins. So I'm going to be making a cake. I'm going to be making a peanut butter cake with chocolate frosting. So for the cake, I'm going to start with a cup of brown sugar in the bowl of my stand mixer. And I'm going to add to that a third of a cup of oil. I'm using canola oil. You can use any neutral flavored oil like vegetable oil, coconut oil. And I'm going to add in a third of a cup of creamy peanut butter. I'm going to mix those up in my mixer until they are well combined. Once those are mixed up, I'm going to add 2 eggs, one at a time. And in between eggs, I'm going to scrape down the bowl so everything gets evenly incorporated. Whoops, what the heck? And once both of my eggs look like they're well incorporated, I'm going to add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So once all of that is mixed up, I'm going to start on my dry ingredients. I'm going to take a cup and a half of all-purpose flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, a half teaspoon of baking soda, a half teaspoon of salt, and because I could not find buttermilk at my grocery store, I am using powdered buttermilk. You can find this in the baking section of your grocery store. So I add the buttermilk powder to my dry ingredients, and when I'm supposed to add the liquid buttermilk in later, I'm just going to do a cup of water. Once all of my dry ingredients are in the bowl, I'm going to whisk them to combine. So now I'm going to incorporate my buttermilk, or water in this case, since I put the buttermilk powder in the dry ingredients, and my dry ingredients in stages. So first I'm going to add some of my dry ingredients, about a third of the mixture. And then I'm going to add about half of my buttermilk. Whoops. I'm then going to add another third of my dry ingredients. And then the rest of my buttermilk. And then I'm going to add the rest of my flour mixture. And once I've added the last of my flour mixture, I'm going to mix it until it's just combined, making sure I don't overmix because then I'll get a dense, not very nice cake. So once my cake batter is all mixed up, I'm going to use 2 6-inch cake pans. You could use one 8 or 9-inch one, but I'm going to spray it down with some oil flour spray and then put some parchment paper in there. So now I'm going to fill my cake pans with the batter, so they're about 2/3 of the way full. And if you really want your cake layers to be even, you can weigh them as well, making sure you're putting the same amount of batter in each tin. So once I have my 3 cakes all filled, I ended up having enough batter to do 3. I'm gonna give them a couple taps on the counter just to make sure they're evenly distributed. And I'm gonna throw them in a 350-degree oven for, honestly, I don't know how long it's gonna take. I haven't made this recipe before and I am doing the smaller cakes. So I'm gonna check them after about 20 minutes and they'll be done when I stick a cake tester in and it comes out clean, but still moist, not completely dry. So the cakes just came out of the oven. It ended up taking about 25 minutes for them to fully cook through. They're still a little moist on the inside, but the cake tester came out clean. So while those cool completely, I'm going to start working on the other parts of the cake. So next I'm gonna make a peanut butter buttercream to put in between the layers of my cake. So I'm gonna start off with about a 1/4 cup of softened butter in a bowl of my stand mixer. And then I'm gonna add 1/2 cup of peanut butter. Ooh. And I'm gonna start off by beating those together until they're well combined. Once your butter and peanut butter are combined together, I'm gonna start adding powdered sugar a little bit at a time. You'll probably end up adding a total of 1 cup to 1.5 cups. I'm just gonna go until I like the flavor and texture that I'm getting from it. So once you've mixed in your powdered sugar, it's probably going to be pretty thick. So I'm going to use a little bit of whole milk to thin it out a little until it's the consistency I want it to be, which is a still thick but spreadable kind of consistency. And when that's all mixed up, I'm going to leave this to the side and start working on my frosting. So now it's time to make the frosting. I'm doing a whipped ganache frosting, so we're going to start with making a ganache. So I have 12 ounces of chocolate chopped up into small pieces in the stand of my mixing bowl, and I have a pint of heavy cream coming to a boil on the stovetop with about a 1/2 teaspoon of salt in there as well. And we're looking like we're getting close to that boil. It's steaming. Anytime now. I thought you were boiling, that's why I started recording. So now I have some little bubbles coming up in my cream. So I'm going to turn off the heat, pour the cream into my chocolate, and let it sit for a minute. Just let it sit, don't do anything, and give that chocolate some time to melt. So I've given the cream about a minute to let the chocolate melt up a little. I'm going to start whisking it and keep going until it is completely smooth. So now that my chocolate and cream has all come together, there's no lumps of chocolate, I'm going to stick this in the fridge and I'm going to check on it and give it a stir every 20 minutes. Once it's all cool but not yet hard, I still want it to be a liquid, I'm going to take it out and I'll meet you there. So it's been about an hour and my ganache is nice and cool now and ready to start whipping. Since ganache frosting will set up pretty quickly after it's been whipped, I have all my other decorating supplies out ready. I have my 3 cake layers, which I've shaved off the tops of them to make them all level. I don't have a turntable, so I made a makeshift one. I have my little cardboard cake round that I just stuck on top of a bowl. I have my offset spatula, I have my scraper, and I have my peanut butter buttercream as well. So to whip this ganache, I have it in the bowl of my stand mixer with the whisk attachment, and I'm going to whisk it on gradually increasing speed until just past when it's holding soft peaks. So once my frosting's whipped up, I'm going to start by putting my peanut butter buttercream in the layers of my cake to build that up. So I'm just going to spread a nice layer as evenly as I can. You could also pipe it in. It might help you get it a little more even, but I'm out of piping bags, so I'm going to work with this for today. I want this to go just to the edges, but not going over like I just did, because I am going to be putting my chocolate frosting on the outside of the cake. Just a little bit more there. So now that I have a nice even layer of peanut butter there, I'm going to put the next layer of cake, and then I'm going to do another layer of peanut butter. So once my layers of filling are all ready, I'm going to put the top of my cake on, and then I'm going to start frosting with the ganache frosting. Once I have a pretty thin coat of icing on my cake, I am going to pop it in the fridge to let that harden a little bit, and then I might hit it up with a little more frosting after before doing my final decorations. So now that my cake with the crumb coat on it has sat in the fridge for a couple minutes, I'm going to add one more layer of frosting to it just to smooth it out and make it look nice, and then I'm going to decorate. So once my cake is covered in icing, I'm gonna put it onto my cake caddy thing. You could use, whatever plate you're gonna serve it on or whatever, but I am taking this over to a friend's house tonight, so I'm gonna put it down inside my cake caddy. You can put a little bit of icing on the bottom so it doesn't wiggle around too much. So carefully place that. And then I'm gonna start working on my final decorations. So I mentioned earlier that I am fresh out of piping bags, so I put a little bit of my frosting into a Ziploc bag with a tip cut and a decorating tip. And I'm gonna pipe a border around the bottom of my cake. Some nice ruffles to make it look pretty. And I did end up with just enough buttercream left to make a couple little decorative rosettes on top, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And as the last final little touch, I'm going to add some crushed up peanuts in the middle. So unfortunately this week, I cannot cut open at this moment and show you the inside of this cake or do a taste test because I am taking it over to a friend's house shortly. But I will give you a close-up of the outside, and hopefully we'll have enough cake left over later to show you the inside. So this is the cake once it's been cut into. It was super good. Legitimately tastes like Reese's peanut butter puffs. So I'm gonna take a plate and we're gonna go find our taste tester. Even though he can't eat any because he'll get diabetes.
He's not in here.
He's not in here. He is not in his usual spot in the bedroom, lazing around. Let's try the living room. Oh, Felix. Smell this. Can't eat any. What do you think? Smells good enough that you got up from your nap? Oh, you poor guy. Let's get you a kitty treat. So thanks everyone for watching, and I'll be back next week with another episode of Monster Munchies. See you next week. Bye!